The alarm system screamed across Unity Station like wounded animals. In the command center, Admiral Thuron's three eyes widened as he stared at the holographic display floating before him. The Vaxil officer had served the Galactic Council for 40 years, and he had never seen readings like these. "Impossible," he whispered, his translator chip converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic speech. "Check the sensors again. This must be an error." The young Keltar technician, her blue fur standing on end with anxiety, ran the diagnostic for the third time. Her six-fingered hands moved quickly across the control panel. "Sir, there is no error. The signatures are real. Multiple objects approaching from the abyss, massive objects, moving at incredible speed, the abyss. Even the name sent chills through most species. It was the great emptiness beyond the outer rim, where no stars shone and no life existed. Nothing came from the abyss. Nothing ever had. Until now." Thuron activated the emergency protocol, sending alerts to all council members across 47 worlds. Within minutes, representatives from dozens of species materialized as holograms around the command center, the air filled with a dozen different languages before the translators synchronized. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" demanded Counselor Vesh, a towering reptilian whose scales gleamed gold. "I was in the middle of the breeding season negotiations." "Something is coming from the abyss," Thuron said simply. The room fell silent. For 3 days, the galaxy watched and waited. The objects grew closer, and the sensors revealed more details. They were ships. Enormous ships. The smallest was twice the size of a council dreadnought. The largest defied classification entirely. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her quarters aboard Unity Station, unable to sleep. As the human representative to the council, she should have been preparing diplomatic responses and reviewing first contact protocols. Instead, she stared at the data streaming across her tablet, her hands trembling. The ship designs were old, very old. They matched patterns from Earth's ancient databases, from a time before the Council, before humanity joined the galactic community, from a time when Earth's sun was dying and humanity screamed into the void, desperate and afraid. She had studied that era in university. Everyone had. The Genesis Exodus, they called it. 50 colony fleets launched into the unknown. Only 3 ever found habitable worlds. The rest vanished into history, presumed lost. Humanity learned to accept that millions of their ancestors died alone in the dark. But these ships matched Fleet Osiris, the Ghost Fleet, the largest military escort ever assembled. Sarah's door chimed. She opened it to find Ambassador Torvik, a small feline species known for their wisdom. His whiskers twitched with concern. "You have seen the data," he said. It was not a question. "They're human ships," Sarah replied, her voice barely a whisper. "From over 1,000,000 years ago." Torvik entered, his tail swishing nervously. "The Council is frightened, Sarah. Ships that survive 1,000,000 years in the abyss, what kind of technology would that require? What kind of weapons?" "I don't know," she admitted. "We have no records of what Fleet Osiris carried. The archives from that era were mostly destroyed when Old Earth was evacuated. The Council will want answers. They will want assurances that these ancient humans pose no threat." Torvik placed a small paw on her arm. "Can you give them those assurances?" Sarah looked at him, then back at the data. "How can I? I don't know what they've become out there." On the 4th day, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Council space. 217 ships hung in the void like metal mountains, their hulls scarred and pitted. Strange symbols covered their armor, and energy readings pulsed from weapons ports that glowed with eerie light. The largest ship, a carrier the size of a small moon, broadcast on ancient Earth frequencies. The message was simple, transmitted in a language that had not been spoken in 1,000 generations. "This is Expeditionary Fleet Osiris. United Earth Defense Force, we request navigation coordinates to Earth. We are coming home." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Sarah stood at the human delegation's platform trying to make herself heard over the din. "Order." The council speaker, an elderly being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, amplified his voice until it shook the chamber. "We will proceed with first contact protocols. Ambassador Chen, your people will take the lead." Sarah's stomach twisted into knots, but she nodded. Within the hour, she found herself aboard a diplomatic shuttle, approaching the massive fleet. The ships loomed before her like ancient gods, terrible and magnificent. The communication channel crackled to life. "Diplomatic vessel, you are cleared to dock with the command carrier Eternal Vigil. We have much to discuss." The voice was human, but something about it seemed wrong. Too precise, too cold, like a recording of a human rather than an actual person. Sarah's shuttle slid into a docking bay that could have held 100 ships her size. As the airlock pressurized, she checked her bioscanner. The atmosphere was breathable, standard Earth mix. That was good, but the temperature was cold, kept at barely 15 degrees. That was odd. The airlock opened. A figure waited for her in the dim corridor beyond. He was tall, perhaps 2 meters, wearing armor that seemed to be fused directly to his body. His skin had a strange metallic sheen and his eyes glowed with a faint blue light. But his face was human, scarred, weathered, but unmistakably human. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice the same one from the transmission. "I am Admiral Caney Vorenus, commander of Fleet Osiris. Welcome aboard." Sarah tried to speak but found her throat dry. She swallowed and tried again. "Admiral, on behalf of the Galactic Council and modern humanity, I welcome you home." Vorenus studied her for a long moment, his glowing eyes unblinking. "Modern humanity," he repeated slowly as if tasting the words. "How interesting. Come, we have much to show you." He led her through corridors that seemed to pulse with life, though no crew members were visible. The walls themselves glowed with circuitry that reminded Sarah of neural pathways. After what felt like an eternity, they entered a vast chamber. Sarah gasped. Thousands of people stood in perfect rows, all wearing the same biomechanical armor as Vorenus. They stood absolutely still, their eyes all glowing with that same eerie blue light. When Vorenus entered, they snapped to attention as one, the movement so synchronized it seemed choreographed. "My crew," Vorenus said simply. "What remains of them? We left Earth with 2 million souls. These 12,000 are all that survived." "Survived what?" Sarah asked, horror creeping into her voice. Vorenus gestured and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a region of space that seemed to be filled with mechanical structures, vast beyond comprehension. Ships moved between them, but not ships like any Sarah had seen. These were organic and mechanical at once, their hulls covered in what looked like black crystal. "We entered a region of space controlled by an intelligence we called the Devourers," Vorenus explained. "They were older than the stars themselves. Ancient machines left behind by a civilization that ascended beyond physical form. But the machines did not ascend. They remained and they were hungry." The hologram shifted, showing a battle. Fleet Osiris's ships fought against a swarm of enemy vessels that seemed endless. Sarah watched ships explode, watched crew members die by the thousands. "For 300 years of subjective time, we fought them," Vorenus continued. "But relativistic effects meant that outside our reference frame, 1,000,000 years passed. We used experimental faster-than-light technology that warped time itself. We could not return the way we came. We could only go forward, always forward, fighting for every light year." "How did you survive?" Sarah whispered. Vorenus looked down at his armored hands. "We changed. We had to change. Our scientists created augmentations that allowed us to survive in hard vacuum, to interface directly with our ships, to think faster and fight harder. Our biologists rewrote our genetic code to eliminate weakness. Our engineers fused us with captured enemy technology." He looked directly at Sarah, and she saw something frightening in those glowing eyes. "We became weapons, Ambassador. It was the only way to win." The crew around them remained motionless, but Sarah could feel their attention on her. Thousands of augmented humans, changed into something that was barely recognizable as her species. "We finally destroyed the last Devourer stronghold 80 years ago," Vorenus said. "And then we turned toward home. We traveled for decades more, following stellar charts that were older than civilizations. And now we are here." He stepped closer to Sarah, and she fought the urge to back away. "Tell me, Ambassador, did we succeed? Did humanity survive? Did our sacrifice mean anything?" Sarah found her voice, though it shook. "Yes, humanity survived. Earth was evacuated before the sun died. We found new worlds. We joined the Galactic Council. We are thriving." Something flickered across Vorenus's face. Relief? Satisfaction? It was hard to tell with his augmented features. "Good," he said softly. "Then it was all worth it." He turned to address his crew. "Fleet Osiris, our mission is complete. We have found humanity. We have come home. The 12,000 voices responded as one, a sound that echoed through the chamber like thunder. Long live humanity. Sarah was escorted back to her shuttle in a daze. As she departed the massive carrier, she looked back at the fleet hanging in space. 200 ships that had survived 1,000,000 years of war. Crewed by humans who had transformed themselves into living weapons. What would the Council say? What would modern humanity say when they learned their ancestors had become this? But more importantly, what did Fleet Osiris want now? They had completed their mission. They had found home. But these were warriors who had known nothing but war for centuries. Could they adapt to peace? Would they even want to? As her shuttle accelerated toward Unity Station, Sarah began composing her report. But she knew that no matter what words she chose, nothing could prepare the galaxy for what was coming. Fleet Osiris had returned, and the universe would never be the same. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 47 member species packed the space, their holographic projections overlapping in some places. The air hummed with tension and a dozen different breathing patterns. Sarah stood at the human delegation platform, exhausted. She had not slept in 2 days, spending every hour reviewing ancient records and preparing her report. Around her, the human delegation looked equally worried. They were scientists, diplomats, artists. None of them were warriors. None of them knew how to deal with what Fleet Osiris represented. The facts are clear, Counselor Vesh declared, his reptilian voice sharp. These ancient humans possess technology beyond our understanding. Their ships alone could devastate entire fleets. We must consider them a potential threat. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but Ambassador Torvik placed a calming paw on her arm before she could speak. "Let us not be hasty," Torvik said, his feline voice carrying surprising authority. These humans traveled through hell itself to return home. They believed they were protecting their species. "Should we punish them for their sacrifice?" "No one speaks of punishment," interjected Counselor Mira, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. "But we must understand what we are dealing with. Ambassador Chen, you spoke with their commander. What is your assessment?" All eyes turned to Sarah. She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Admiral Vorenus and his crew are traumatized. They have fought for survival for centuries. They have changed themselves in ways we cannot fully understand, but they are still human, and they came home because they never forgot what they were fighting for." "Pretty words," Vesh hissed. "But what do they want? Why bring a military fleet to council space? Why not simply send a message?" Sarah had no answer to that. The truth was, she did not know what Fleet Osiris truly wanted, and that terrified her. The council speaker raised his crystalline arms, calling for silence. "We will investigate these claims thoroughly. All ancient Earth records will be reviewed. Until we understand the full situation, Fleet Osiris will remain at the border. They will be provided supplies but will not enter council space proper." Sarah wanted to protest, but she knew it was the best outcome she could hope for. At least the council was not voting for immediate military action. As the session ended, Sarah made her way to the historical archives. The ancient Earth databases were stored in the deepest levels of Unity Station, preserved in quantum storage that could last millions of years. Few people ever accessed them. The past was past, and most species preferred to look forward. But now the past had returned, and it demanded answers. Dr. Marcus Webb was waiting for her in the archive chamber. The elderly historian was one of the few humans who specialized in pre-council history. His gray beard was unkempt and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. "You found something," Sarah said. It was not a question. Marcus nodded, gesturing to the holographic displays floating around him. "I found everything. And Sarah, it is worse than we thought." He activated a file marked with the highest security clearance. Sarah recognized the seal of the old Earth government from the era of the dying sun. The Genesis Exodus was not just about survival, Marcus began, his voice heavy. It was about preserving humanity in all its forms. The council fleets carried colonists and scientists. The industrial fleets carried engineers and builders. But Fleet Osiris carried something different. The hologram showed soldiers, thousands of them, training in massive facilities. They were testing weapons, studying combat tactics, undergoing genetic modifications even then. Fleet Osiris was not just an escort, Marcus continued. It was an invasion force. The old Earth government knew that any aliens humanity encountered might be hostile, So they created a fleet designed to conquer, to dominate, to destroy if necessary. Sarah felt sick. They sent soldiers into the unknown expecting war. They sent the best soldiers humanity had ever created, Marcus corrected. Enhanced, trained, equipped with weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics. The fleet carried experimental technology that even modern science cannot fully replicate. He pulled up another file, this one showing technical specifications. Sarah recognized some of it from her visit to the Eternal Vigil. Void drives, they called them. They could theoretically achieve faster than light speeds that warped space and time. But the calculations showed massive temporal dilation effects. The crews would experience months or years while centuries passed outside. So when Vorenus said they fought for 300 years, but a million years passed, Sarah trailed off. He was telling the truth, Marcus finished. They launched into the abyss expecting a 10-year journey. They emerged a million years later, having lived 3 centuries of subjective time, and every moment of those 3 centuries was war. Sarah sank into a chair, her mind reeling. What else did you find? Marcus hesitated, then activated another file. This one showed star charts and sensor readings. This is the region where Fleet Osiris was supposed to search for habitable worlds. According to these old surveys, there were anomalies detected, energy signatures that suggested advanced technology. The old Earth government thought it might be friendly aliens. The Devourers, Sarah whispered. We can assume so. Marcus agreed. Fleet Osiris walked into a war zone with no warning, no preparation beyond their weapons. They were supposed to be conquistadors seeking new worlds. Instead, they became survivors fighting for their lives. He pulled up a final file and Sarah's blood ran cold. It was a mission directive written by the old Earth Defense Council. The words were clinical, precise, terrible. If Fleet Osiris encounters hostile alien forces superior to human technology, all ethical restraints are hereby lifted. Commanders are authorized to use any means necessary for survival, including but not limited to forced biological augmentation of crew members, integration of captured alien technology, suspension of all human rights protocols, and temporal manipulation via void drive systems. The mission is survival. All other considerations are secondary. Sarah read the directive 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood. But the words remained clear. Fleet Osiris had been given permission to become monsters if necessary. And they had. The old government knew this might happen, Sarah said, her voice hollow. They sent these people out knowing they might have to sacrifice their humanity to survive. And they did survive, Marcus said quietly. For 1,000,000 years of objective time, 12,000 humans have been fighting their way back home. What kind of people does that create, Sarah? Before she could answer, her communication device chimed. It was Admiral Thuron requesting her immediate presence in the command center. Something had happened. Sarah ran through the corridors of Unity Station, Marcus struggling to keep up behind her. When they burst into the command center, they found it in chaos. Every screen showed the same thing. Fleet Osiris was moving. They are not attacking, Thuron said quickly, seeing Sarah's expression. But they are not staying at the border either. They are spreading out, sending scout ships to survey nearby systems. Did they ask permission? Sarah demanded. No, they simply informed us they were conducting reconnaissance. Admiral Vorenus said it was standard military procedure after arriving in unknown territory. Sarah pulled up a communication channel. Get me Admiral Vorenus, now! The hologram appeared within seconds. Vorenus looked the same as before, his augmented eyes glowing in the dim light of his ship's bridge. Behind him, Sarah could see crew members working at stations, their movements precise and coordinated. Ambassador Chen, Vorenus greeted her. I assume you are concerned about our ship movements. You cannot just move through council space without permission, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice level. There are protocols written by species who have never faced extinction, Vorenus interrupted. His voice was not harsh, but it was firm. We have arrived in a region of space we do not know, surrounded by species we have never encountered. Before we can stand down from combat readiness, we must ensure there are no threats. The Council is not a threat, Sarah insisted. Vorenus tilted his head, studying her. Perhaps, but we have learned not to take anyone's word on such matters. We will verify the situation ourselves. Our scouts will complete their survey in 72 hours. We will not interfere with any inhabited systems or civilian traffic. "This is not acceptable," Thuron interjected, his translator making his clicks sound angry. "You are violating Council space regulations. We could interpret this as an act of war." For the first time, Verena smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral Thuron, I presume. You command Unity Station's defense fleet?" "I do." "How many ships in your fleet, Admiral?" Thuron straightened. "That is classified information." 243 combat vessels, Verena stated flatly. "Your largest ship masses 800,000 tons. Your most powerful weapon is a plasma accelerator cannon, with an effective range of 600,000 kilometers. Your shields can withstand approximately 47 terawatts of sustained fire before failure." The command center fell silent. Vorenus had just recited classified military data that should have been impossible to obtain. "We have been scanning your defenses since we arrived," Vorenus continued calmly. "Your technology is impressive for a peaceful civilization. But Admiral, my fleet has fought enemies that make your entire military look like children playing with toys. We do not want war with the Council. But do not threaten us with war. You would lose." He said it without arrogance, without anger, just a simple statement of fact. And somehow that made it more terrifying. Sarah stepped forward, placing herself between the two admirals. "Admiral Vorenus, please, we are not your enemies, but you must understand the Council has never encountered anything like your fleet. They are afraid. They need time to adjust to understand." Vorenus looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. "I understand fear, Ambassador. I have lived with it for 3 centuries. But fear is not an excuse for stupidity. We will complete our reconnaissance. We will determine if this region of space is safe. And then we will decide what comes next." "Decide what comes next?" Sarah repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to understand what humanity has become," Vorenus said. "We left Earth as its defenders. We returned to find our descendants integrated into an alien coalition, following alien laws, living alien lives. We need to know if that is acceptable." "Acceptable?" Sarah felt her temper rising. "You do not get to judge us. We survived. We thrived. We built something beautiful here." "Did you?" Vorenus asked. "Or did you simply surrender your independence for the illusion of security?" Before Sarah could respond, Vorenus cut the connection. His hologram vanished, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Marcus placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "There is something else you need to see," he said quietly. "Something I found in the archives that you are not going to like." They returned to the historical database, and Marcus pulled up a series of files marked with Council seals. "Recent files, not ancient ones. These are Council intelligence reports," Marcus explained. "From the first decades after humanity joined the Council. Sarah, the Council has been manipulating us, deliberately keeping us weak. The files showed meeting minutes, secret directives, psychological profiles. Sarah read them with growing horror. The Council had identified humanity as a potential threat from first contact. Humans bred quickly, adapted easily, and showed remarkable aggression when threatened. So the Council implemented a long-term strategy. They encouraged human integration into galactic society. They promoted human artists and scientists while quietly discouraging military development. They used social engineering and subtle pressure to reshape human culture into something peaceful, cooperative, and most importantly, controllable. It had taken 4 centuries, but it had worked. Modern humanity was exactly what the Council wanted. Smart enough to be useful, peaceful enough to be harmless. "They made us weak on purpose," Sarah whispered. "They made us safe," Marcus countered. "There is a difference." "But Sarah, if Admiral Vorenus discovers this—" Sarah did not need him to finish. Fleet Osiris had fought for 1,000,000 years to protect humanity. If they learned their descendants had been deliberately neutered by alien manipulation, there would be war. And the Council would lose. Sarah looked at the data one more time, then made a decision. "Delete these files. Encrypt them. Lock them behind security that even I cannot access." "Sarah, do it," she ordered. "Vorenus cannot know, not yet. Not until we find a way to bridge this gap between ancient and modern humanity. If he learns the truth now, millions will die." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. His fingers moved across the controls and the files vanished into encrypted storage. But Sarah knew the truth would come out eventually. It always did. And when it did, the galaxy would burn. The integration zones were supposed to be neutral ground. 3 asteroid stations had been converted into meeting places where crew members from Fleet Osiris could interact with the wider galaxy under controlled conditions. The Council hoped that contact with modern civilization would help the ancient warriors adjust to peaceful life. It was a disaster from the beginning. Sarah watched the security footage with growing dread. On Station Gamma, an Osiris soldier named Lieutenant Kovac had encountered a group of modern humans working at a trade depot. The conversation started cordially enough, but then Kovac learned that these humans reported to a Vaxil supervisor. "You take orders from an alien?" Kovac's voice was sharp with disbelief. The modern human, a young woman named Jin Park, looked confused. "Mr. Thaval is my manager. It is normal workplace hierarchy. You are a human. You should not be taking orders from anything that is not human." Jin's expression hardened. "That is racist. The Council is built on equality between species." Kovac stepped closer, and even through the camera, Sarah could see the predatory grace in his movements. "Equality? You are biologically superior to most species in this station. You are faster, stronger, more adaptable. Yet you accept subordinate positions? Your ancestors would be ashamed." Security had to intervene before the situation escalated. Kovac left peacefully, but the damage was done. Within hours, the incident was all over the galactic news networks. Ancient human soldier promotes species supremacy. Modern humans denounce ancestors' beliefs. The Council fears extremist ideology, but that was just one incident among hundreds. On Station Alpha, Osiris crew members witnessed a human family celebrating their daughter's bonding ceremony with a Keltar partner. The sight of human-alien interbreeding sent several Osiris soldiers into a rage. They did not attack, but they made their disgust clear. The family left in tears, and the story spread across every human colony. On Station Beta, an Osiris engineer gave an impromptu demonstration of hand-to-hand combat techniques. Within days, young humans from nearby colonies arrived, begging to be taught. The Council tried to shut down these training sessions, but they moved underground. Held in cargo bays and abandoned facilities, Sarah found herself in emergency meetings every day, trying to control the damage. But the truth was simple and terrifying. Fleet Osiris represented something that modern humanity had forgotten. They represented strength, pride, the idea that humans did not have to apologize for existing, and many young humans found that message intoxicating. "We are losing control of the narrative," Ambassador Torvik said during one late-night meeting. His whiskers drooped with exhaustion. "Every day more humans express sympathy for Osiris positions. They are calling themselves inheritors now, claiming they want to inherit the strength of their ancestors." Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. The Council is making it worse by trying to censor them. It just makes Osiris look like victims of oppression. "They are victims," said Marcus Webb, who had become Sarah's unofficial advisor on all things related to Fleet Osiris. "Victims of time, of war, of everything they endured. But that does not make them right. Does it make them wrong?" Sarah asked quietly. The room fell silent. It was the question no one wanted to address. Were the Osiris soldiers wrong to be proud of their humanity? Were they wrong to question why modern humans seem so passive, so willing to follow alien leadership? The answer was complicated, and complications were dangerous. A message alert interrupted the uncomfortable silence. Sarah's face went pale as she read it. "Admiral Vorenus is requesting a private meeting." "On Earth? Absolutely not," Counselor Vesh declared when Sarah brought the request to the full council. "We cannot allow him to visit Earth. The symbolism alone would be catastrophic." "He has the right to see his homeworld," Sarah argued. "His fleet fought for 1,000,000 years to return home. Are we going to deny them even that?" "Earth is not his home," Vesh countered. "His home was destroyed by the expanding sun 1,000,000 years ago. Modern Earth is a different world, built by different humans. He has no claim to it." "He is still human," Sarah said, her voice rising. "And I am still the human representative. I am authorizing the meeting." The council erupted in argument, but Sarah had the authority. 24 hours later, she found herself standing in a meadow on Earth, watching a shuttle descend from orbit. Admiral Vorenus emerged alone, without guards or weapons. For the first time, Sarah saw him out of his armor. He wore a simple uniform. Though the metallic sheen of his augmented skin was still visible, he stood in the grass looking around with an expression of wonder. "Trees," he said softly. "Real trees. I had forgotten what they looked like." Sarah gave him space, watching as he walked through the meadow. He touched leaves, smelled flowers, knelt to feel the soil between his fingers. When he looked up at the sky, she saw tears running down his face. "We made it," he whispered. "After everything, we made it home." They walked in silence for a while, following a path through the forest. Eventually, they reached a cliff overlooking the ocean. Vorenus stood at the edge, watching waves crash against rocks far below. "This is not the Earth I remember," he finally said. "My Earth was dying. The sun was expanding, the oceans were boiling away. We evacuated billions, but there was not enough time, not enough ships. I remember watching children being left behind because there was no room. I remember their screaming, his hands clenched into fists. That is why we accepted the mission. That is why we volunteered to become what we became, because someone had to go out there and find safety for humanity no matter the cost." "You did find it," Sarah said gently. "Look around. Humanity is safe. We are thriving. Your mission succeeded. Did it?" Vorenus turned to face her, his augmented eyes glowing. "I see humans who have forgotten what it means to be human. I see a species that has surrendered its identity to become part of some galactic collective. I see weakness where there should be strength. You see peace where there used to be war," Sarah corrected. "You see cooperation where there used to be conflict. Is that really so terrible?" "It is terrible if it means humanity cannot defend itself," Vorenus said. "What happens when the Council fails? What happens when a real threat emerges? Will your diplomats and artists save you? The Council has maintained peace for over 3,000 years, Sarah argued. "We have not faced a major war in 3,000 years is nothing," Vorenus interrupted. "The Devourers existed for millions of years before we destroyed them. There are threats in this universe that your precious Council cannot even imagine, and when they come, humanity will need to be strong enough to survive." "So what do you want?" Sarah asked, frustration bleeding into her voice. "Do you want us to abandon the Council? Start building weapons? Turn humanity back into warriors?" Vorenus looked back at the ocean. "I want humanity to have a choice. Right now, you have been shaped by alien influence into something docile and controlled. I want humans to remember that we can be more than that." "And if remembering means violence," Sarah challenged. "If it means war, then it means survival," Vorenus said simply. "I would rather see humanity standing and fighting than kneeling in peace." Sarah wanted to argue, but movement in the sky caught her attention. Shuttles, dozens of them, descending toward the meadow. "What did you do?" she demanded. Vorenus did not look at the shuttles. "I invited people to meet me. People who want to hear what I have to say." The shuttles landed and hundreds of humans emerged. Young people mostly, but also some older ones. They wore homemade uniforms with the Osiris fleet symbol. The inheritors, Sarah realized with horror. Vorenus had called them here. "You cannot recruit people like this," Sarah said. "The Council will see it as an act of aggression." "I am not recruiting," Vorenus replied. "I am simply offering truth. These people have chosen to come on their own." He walked toward the gathered crowd, and Sarah had no choice but to follow. The young humans looked at Vorenus with something close to worship in their eyes. "You came to hear me speak," Vorenus addressed them, his voice carrying easily across the meadow. "So I will speak truth. You have been told that humanity's place is within the Council, that peace is the highest virtue, that strength is barbarism, but I am here to tell you that your ancestors were strong. They conquered Earth's gravity well. They built empires among the stars. They faced extinction and refused to die." The crowd murmured in agreement. Sarah saw the dangerous enthusiasm in their faces. "The Council fears strength," Vorenus continued. "They fear what humanity could become if we remembered our power. So they have spent centuries making you weak, teaching you to doubt yourselves, to seek alien approval before taking action. They have turned you into servants in your own galaxy." "That is not fair," Sarah called out. "The Council gave us technology, knowledge, allies. The Council gave you a cage and told you it was paradise," Vorenus shot back. "And you believed them because you had forgotten what freedom tasted like." He turned back to the crowd. "I am not here to start a war. I am not here to destroy the Council. But I am here to offer a choice. You can continue as you are, peaceful and controlled, or you can reclaim your heritage, remember your strength, become what humanity was always meant to be." "And what is that?" someone in the crowd called out. Vorenus smiled. "Unstoppable." The crowd erupted in cheers. Sarah watched in horror as hundreds of young humans pledged themselves to Vorenus's cause. They wanted training, they wanted augmentation, They wanted to join Fleet Osiris and learn what it meant to be true humans. Within hours, the news spread across every human colony. The Inheritor movement exploded in size. Protests erupted on council worlds, with humans demanding more autonomy, more respect, more recognition of their species' achievements. The council called emergency sessions. Alien representatives demanded that humanity control its extremist elements. Some species proposed sanctions, others suggested military intervention. And through it all, Fleet Osiris remained at the border, watching and waiting. Sarah returned to Unity Station to find chaos. Human delegates were shouting at alien counselors, accusations flying in every direction. The carefully maintained peace of the council was fracturing along species lines. Ambassador Torvik found her in her office, staring at reports of riots on 3 different worlds. "Sarah, you must do something. The council is talking about declaring Fleet Osiris a terrorist organization." "They would start a war they cannot win," Sarah said numbly. "I know," Torvik replied. "That is why we need you to prevent it. You are the bridge between modern and ancient humanity. You must find a solution." But Sarah had no solution. How could she bridge a gap of 1,000,000 years? How could she reconcile the peaceful species humanity had become with the warriors they used to be? Her comm device chimed. It was Marcus Webb, and he sounded panicked. "Sarah, you need to see this." I found more files. The council has been preparing for this scenario for decades. Preparing how? Military protocols for containing a human uprising. Contingency plans for orbital strikes on human colonies if they become too aggressive. Sarah, the council has been planning how to suppress humanity since we joined. They always feared we might remember our past. Sarah felt cold. If Varinus discovered these files, if the Inheritors learned that the council had been planning to bomb human worlds. "How many people know about this?" she asked. "Just me so far." "But Sarah, these files are not as well encrypted as the others. If Fleet Osiris scans deep enough into council databases, they will find them." Sarah made a decision. "Lock them down. Maximum encryption. And Marcus, start preparing a backup plan. Because if this situation gets any worse, we might need to evacuate council space entirely." "You think it will come to that?" Sarah looked out her window at the stars, thinking of Fleet Osiris somewhere in the darkness. "I think we are standing at the edge of a cliff, Marcus. And I do not know if anyone is strong enough to pull us back." Across the galaxy, in the command center of the Eternal Vigil, Admiral Varinus stood before a holographic display showing the locations of every human colony in council space. His senior officers stood around him, their augmented faces reflecting the blue light. "Sir," one of them said, "the Inheritors are flooding us with recruitment requests. Over 100,000 humans want to join the fleet. What are your orders?" Varinus studied the map for a long moment. "Begin screening the applicants. We will accept those who show the proper mindset. Start them on the basic augmentation protocols. The council will see that as an act of war," another officer warned. "The council is already preparing for war with us," Varinus replied. "They simply have not admitted it yet. But I found something interesting while scanning their databases. They have contingency plans for suppressing humanity, orbital strike coordinates for human colonies, plans for containing a human uprising that were written 3 centuries ago." The room fell silent. The officers' hands moved to their weapons instinctively. "The council has always feared us," Varinus continued quietly. "They have spent centuries trying to tame humanity, to make us safe and predictable. But we were never meant to be safe. We were meant to be free." He turned to face his officers. "Prepare the fleet. We are not attacking, not yet, but we will be ready, because the time is coming when humanity will have to choose between comfortable slavery and dangerous freedom." "And if they choose slavery?" an officer asked. Varinus's expression hardened. "Then we will choose for them." The first shot was fired on a colony called New Shanghai, 3 weeks after Varinus's speech on Earth. No one was sure who fired it, whether it was an Osiris sympathizer or a council provocateur, but the result was the same. A human mob attacked the council administration building, and alien security forces responded with lethal force. 12 humans died, including a 7-year-old girl. The images spread across the galactic network within minutes. A child's body being carried from the rubble, her father screaming in grief, blood on human and alien hands alike. The galaxy watched in horror as the fragile peace finally shattered. Within hours, Fleet Osiris moved, not to attack but to claim. Their ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above 7 human colonies simultaneously, broadcasting the same message. This world is now under the protection of Fleet Osiris. All Council military forces are ordered to withdraw immediately. Failure to comply will be met with force. The Council called it an invasion. Vorenus called it liberation. The humans living on those worlds called it confusing, terrifying, and for many exciting. Sarah watched from Unity Station as her worst fears came true. Council fleets mobilized, moving to surround the occupied worlds. But they hesitated. No one wanted to fire the first shot that would start a war with Fleet Osiris. Everyone had seen the combat simulations. Everyone knew how such a war would end. "We must negotiate," Ambassador Torvik insisted during an emergency council session, "before this spirals beyond control." Negotiate? Councillor Vesh's scales flushed red with rage. They have seized sovereign council territory. They have declared independence for worlds that are under council protection. There is nothing to negotiate. Then what do you propose? Sarah demanded. War? Are you willing to sacrifice millions of lives to maintain control over human colonies? We are willing to maintain order, Vesh replied coldly. If humanity cannot control its extremist elements, the council will do it for them. The threat was clear, and it sent chills through every human representative in the chamber. This was exactly what Marcus had found in those encrypted files. The council had always been prepared to put humanity down if they became too troublesome. Sarah stood, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Is that what this has always been about? Keeping humanity weak enough that you could destroy us if necessary? The chamber fell silent. Several alien counselors looked uncomfortable, avoiding Sarah's gaze. The council has protected humanity for centuries, Vesh said, but his voice lacked conviction. Protected us? Sarah pulled up files on her display. Marcus's research filling the screens around the chamber. Or controlled us. I have found documents showing social engineering programs designed to make humans more peaceful. I have found military contingencies for orbital strikes on human colonies. I have found centuries of manipulation disguised as friendship. Those files are classified. Another counselor objected weakly. They are also true, Sarah shot back. And now the humans you were so afraid of have returned from the darkness. The humans you could not manipulate, could not control. And you are terrified because you know they are stronger than you. This is treason, Vesh declared. Ambassador Chen, you are hereby removed from your position and placed under arrest. Council security moved towards Sarah, but Ambassador Torvik stepped between them. You will not touch her. Sarah speaks truth that needed to be spoken. If the council has been manipulating humanity, we all deserve to know. Other representatives began speaking up, demanding investigations, calling for transparency. The council was fracturing, species choosing sides based on old alliances and newer fears. While the council tore itself apart, Sarah received a message on her private channel. It was from Admiral Vorenus. Ambassador Chen, I think it is time we spoke honestly. Come to New Shanghai. Come see what we are building. Sarah knew it was dangerous, possibly even suicidal. The council would see it as collusion with the enemy. But she had run out of options. Someone had to try to prevent total war. She took a shuttle to New Shanghai without authorization, leaving Unity Station in chaos behind her. As she approached the colony, she saw Osiris warships in orbit, their weapons tracking every vessel that came near. But they let her through and she landed in the capital city. The transformation was already visible. Osiris soldiers walked the streets alongside local humans, their augmented forms intimidating but not threatening. The council administration building had been converted into a training center, where young humans learned combat techniques. Recruitment stations were set up on every corner, with long lines of volunteers. Admiral Vorenus met her in what had been the governor's office. Maps covered the walls showing human colonies throughout the galaxy, with 7 now marked in Osiris blue. Ambassador Chen, he greeted her. Thank you for coming. I know this required courage. Courage or stupidity, Sarah replied. Admiral, you are starting a war that will destroy millions of lives. You must know the council will not simply let you take their colonies. They are not council colonies, Vorenus corrected. They are human colonies that the council claimed authority over. And the humans living here support us. We have held votes in all 7 systems. Over 70% chose to align with Fleet Osiris, rather than remain under council control. Sarah had seen the voting results. He was not lying, though she suspected the votes were influenced by Osiris propaganda and the death of that child in the riots. "What do you want, Admiral?" Sarah asked tiredly. "What is your endgame?" Vorenus gestured to the maps. "I want humanity to be free. Not free to do whatever the Council permits, but truly free to determine our own destiny. These 7 colonies are just the beginning. More will follow. Eventually, humanity will have to choose between remaining with the Council or forging our own path. A path built on military might," Sarah said. "A path that returns us to being warriors and conquerors." "If necessary," Vorenus agreed. "But not because we want war. Because we refuse to be controlled by fear of war. The Council kept you weak because they were afraid of what you might become. I am giving humans the choice to become strong again." "And the humans who do not want that choice?" Sarah challenged. "What about the humans who are happy with the peace we built?" "They are welcome to keep their peace," Vorenus said. "But they will keep it in Council space, not in human space. The galaxy is large enough for both versions of humanity." Sarah saw the trap in his logic. "You are dividing humanity, creating a schism that might never heal." "Humanity was already divided," Vorenus replied, "between those who remember what we are capable of and those who have forgotten. I am simply making that division visible." Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring. Vorenus's expression darkened as he pulled up a tactical display. Sarah's heart sank as she saw what the sensors were showing. The Council had made its move. A massive fleet had entered the system, over 300 ships surrounding New Shanghai. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in centuries. "All Osiris forces," came the transmission from the Council fleet commander, a grizzled Keltar admiral named Jerix. "You are in violation of Council law. Surrender immediately or we will be forced to remove you by military action." Vorenus studied the tactical situation calmly. "Admiral Jerix, your forces are impressive, but they are not sufficient to defeat Fleet Osiris. Withdraw now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed." "You are outnumbered 3-1, Jerix responded. "Surrender or die." Sarah watched Vorenus carefully. This was the moment of decision. War or peace? Millions of lives hung in the balance. "Admiral," she said quietly, "please. There must be another way." Vorenus looked at her, and for a moment she saw the weight of 3 centuries of war in his eyes. "There is always another way, Ambassador. But the Council will not take it. They have decided that humanity must be brought to heel. So be it." He touched a control and Sarah gasped as new contacts appeared on the tactical display. More Osiris ships emerging from stealth positions throughout the system. The Council fleet was not surrounding Fleet Osiris. They were surrounded by it. "As you can see, Admiral Jerix," Vorenus said calmly, "I anticipated your response. My fleet has had weeks to prepare for this confrontation. You are welcome to test your forces against mine, but I promise you the result will be catastrophic for the Council." The communication channels erupted with chatter from the Council fleet. Sarah could hear the panic in their voices as they realized the tactical situation had reversed. "This is madness," Jerix finally replied. "If we fight here, billions will die across the galaxy as this conflict spreads." "Then do not fight," Vorenus said simply. "Withdraw your forces. Recognize the independence of these human colonies. Let humanity make its own choices." "I do not have authority to make that decision," Jerix admitted. "Then get someone who does," Vorenus commanded. "You have 6 hours before I consider your presence an act of war." The transmission ended. Sarah rounded on Vorenus, her fear turning to anger. "You planned this from the beginning. You wanted this confrontation." "I prepared for this confrontation," Vorenus corrected. "The Council was always going to respond with force. I simply made sure that force would not be enough. Now they must negotiate. Or they will call your bluff," Sarah said. "What happens if they attack anyway?" Vorenus's expression became cold. "It is not a bluff, Ambassador. If they attack, I will destroy their fleet, and then I will move on the Council homeworlds, and I will keep moving until the Council agrees to let humanity go." Sarah felt sick. This was genocide he was threatening, the destruction of entire civilizations. The ancient humans I read about, the ones who launched into the darkness to save their species, they would never have done this. They were heroes, not monsters. "Heroes become monsters when the situation demands it," Vorenus said quietly. "That is the lesson of war, Ambassador. That is what 3 centuries of fighting the Devourers taught me. Sometimes you must be willing to become the very thing you fight against to ensure survival." Then you are no better than the devourers, Sarah accused. Vorenus did not flinch. Perhaps not. But I am alive. My crew is alive. Humanity is alive. Sometimes that is all that matters. The 6 hours passed in terrible tension. Sarah tried desperately to reach the council to find some compromise, but no one would listen. The council was divided between those who wanted to attack immediately and those who wanted to negotiate. The paralysis of democracy at its worst. With 1 hour remaining, a new transmission arrived. Not from Admiral Xerix, but from Unity Station itself. It was the council speaker, the being of pure energy that led the entire galactic government. Admiral Vorenus, the speaker's voice chimed like crystals. The council has considered your demands. We cannot accept them. To do so would be to admit that military force determines law. That might makes right. We cannot build a civilization on such principles. You already have, Vorenus replied. You built it on the principle that the council's military might keeps order. I am simply showing you that your might is not sufficient to control humanity. If we give in to you, every species in the council will demand similar independence, the speaker said. The coalition will collapse. Thousands of years of peace will end. Maybe it is time for it to end, Vorenus said. Maybe a peace built on control and fear is not worth preserving. The speaker was silent for a long moment. Very well. You leave us no choice. The council fleets will attack in 1 hour. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. Sarah felt her world collapsing. This was it. War. Real war. On a scale the galaxy had not seen in millennia. But before the hour expired, something unexpected happened. Another fleet arrived. But this was not a council fleet. It was human. Modern human. Civilian ships, cargo vessels, passenger transports, thousands of them, forming a wall between the council fleet and the Osiris forces. A transmission came from the lead ship. Sarah recognized the voice immediately. It was Marcus Webb. This is Professor Marcus Webb speaking for the Human Peace Fleet. We are unarmed civilians. We have placed ourselves between the Council and Fleet Osiris. If you want to start this war, you will have to go through us first. Sarah pulled up the manifest. There were over 10,000 ships carrying millions of modern humans who had rushed to New Shanghai to prevent bloodshed. We do not support Fleet Osiris's methods, Marcus continued. But we do not support the Council's manipulation either. Humanity deserves truth, freedom, and the right to determine our own future. We call on both sides to stand down and negotiate in good faith. The Council fleet did not respond. Neither did Fleet Osiris. The galaxy held its breath. Finally, Admiral Vorenus spoke. Very well. I will agree to talks, but not with the full Council. I will speak only with human representatives. Let humanity decide its own fate. The speaker chimed in response. Agreed. A summit will be convened on Earth. All parties will attend. But the blockade remains until an agreement is reached. The immediate crisis passed, but everyone knew this was just a pause. The real battle was about to begin, not with weapons, but with words. And Sarah knew that what was decided in the coming days would determine humanity's future for generations to come. Earth had never seen such a gathering. The summit took place in Geneva, in an ancient building that had once housed the United Nations before humanity reached the stars. Representatives from every human colony attended, along with observers from the Council. But the real tension was between three groups: modern humans who supported the Council, the inheritors who followed Fleet Osiris, and those who sought a middle path. Admiral Vorenus arrived without his armor, a gesture of goodwill that fooled no one. His augmented body was weapon enough, and everyone knew it. He walked through the halls where human diplomats had once debated the fate of nations, now debating the fate of the species itself. Sarah found herself appointed as mediator, representing neither side but trying to find common ground. It was an impossible task, but someone had to try. The first 3 days were brutal. Arguments echoed through the chamber as both sides presented their cases. The inheritors showed evidence of council manipulation, the social engineering programs, the contingency plans for suppressing humanity. They painted a picture of a species that had been slowly neutered by alien overlords. The council supporters countered with evidence of Osiris intimidation, forced recruitment, the violence that followed wherever Fleet Osiris went. They spoke of the peace humanity had enjoyed for centuries, the prosperity and safety that came from cooperation. Neither side was entirely wrong. Neither side was entirely right, and that made compromise nearly impossible. On the fourth day, Sarah called for a closed session. Just her, Admiral Varenus, and a young woman named Kira Chen, no relation, who had become the unofficial leader of the moderate humans. They met in a small room away from cameras and crowds. "We are getting nowhere," Sarah said bluntly. "The Council supporters will never accept military independence, and Fleet Osiris will never accept continued Council control. We need a different approach. What do you suggest?" Kira asked. She was young, barely 30, but she had shown remarkable leadership in organizing the Peace Fleet. Sarah took a deep breath. "What if we stopped thinking about this as a choice between two options? What if humanity split into two branches?" Varenus raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The galaxy is vast," Sarah continued, "large enough for multiple versions of humanity. What if the Osiris colonies became independent, free to develop as they choose? Meanwhile, the Council colonies remain part of the galactic government. Two different paths for humanity, both legitimate, both free. The Council will never agree to that," Kira said. "It sets a precedent for every species to demand independence." "Let them," Sarah replied. "Maybe it is time for the Council to evolve from a controlling government into a true coalition of sovereign equals. Maybe this crisis is an opportunity to build something better." Varenus leaned back, considering. "You propose we formalize the division. Fleet Osiris and its supporters establish independent colonies beyond Council space. Modern humans remain with the Council but with guaranteed autonomy, and both branches of humanity maintain an alliance." "Exactly," Sarah said. "The covenant of two paths. We acknowledge that humanity has evolved in different directions. We stop fighting about which way is right and accept that both ways have value." Kira frowned. "But what happens when conflicts arise between the two branches? What if Osiris colonies become aggressive toward Council space?" "We establish treaties," Sarah said. "Clear boundaries, mutual defense agreements, trade relationships. We become allies rather than trying to force unity." "And if the two branches go to war with each other?" Varenus asked quietly. Sarah met his gaze. "Then humanity destroys itself, which is what will happen if we do not find a solution now. At least this way we give peace a chance." The three of them sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Varenus nodded slowly. "I will present this to my officers. But I have one condition." "What condition?" Sarah asked warily. "The Council must publicly acknowledge its manipulation of humanity. No more lies, no more hidden programs. If we are to trust them as allies, we must have transparency." Sarah knew how difficult that would be. The Council's pride, the admission of wrongdoing, the political fallout. But it was necessary. "I will make it happen," she promised. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of negotiations. The Council resisted at first, but the alternative was war with Fleet Osiris, and nobody wanted that. Slowly, painfully, the framework of the covenant emerged. Fleet Osiris and its supporters would establish the free human territories beyond the outer rim. They would be sovereign, independent, free to develop their own culture and military. The Council colonies would remain within the galactic government, but with guaranteed autonomy and recognition as a distinct entity with the right to self-governance. Trade agreements were drafted. Defense pacts were written. Boundaries were established. And most importantly, the Council agreed to release all classified files related to humanity, exposing centuries of manipulation. The revelations shocked the galaxy. Many species were outraged at the Council's actions. Others admitted they had suspected something. The political fallout was enormous, leading to reforms throughout the Council structure. The era of centralized control was ending, replaced by a more balanced system of sovereign cooperation. But amid the political chaos, there was hope. Humanity was finally free to choose its own path. Both paths. On the final day of the summit, Sarah stood beside Admiral Varenus on a stage before thousands of humans and millions more watching remotely. They signed the covenant together, their signatures representing the two branches of humanity. "Today we acknowledge a truth," Sarah said to the assembled crowd. "Humanity is not one thing. We are diverse, contradictory, capable of great peace and great violence. We are artists and warriors, diplomats and soldiers. We are everything in between, and that is not weakness, that is strength." Varenus stepped forward, his augmented form somehow less intimidating in the moment. "My crew and I left Earth 1,000,000 years ago to protect humanity. We endured hell itself for that mission, and today we complete that mission not by controlling humanity's future, but by ensuring humans are free to choose their own future. He turned to face the crowd. To those who choose the path of warriors, who will join Fleet Osiris in the free territories, I promise you purpose and strength. We will build a society that honors the fighting spirit of our ancestors. We will be humanity's shield against the darkness. Then he looked at the council's supporters. And to those who choose the path of peace, who will remain with the council, I say this: do not think yourselves weak. Peace requires its own kind of strength. You will build a society of wisdom and cooperation. You will be humanity's light in the darkness. He paused, and for the first time since his return, Sarah saw him smile. A real smile. Not the cold expression of a warrior, but the warm look of a man who had finally found what he was searching for. Both paths are necessary, Vorenus concluded. Both are valid. And together we are stronger than either could be alone. This is the covenant of two paths. This is humanity finally free. The crowd erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy with the compromise, but most recognized it as the best option available. The alternative had been war, division, the possible destruction of everything humanity had built. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Torvik approached Sarah. His whiskers twitched with emotion. You did it, the small feline said. You found a solution that no one thought possible. Sarah shook her head. Not just me, all of us. Humans who were willing to compromise, aliens who were willing to admit mistakes. This only works if everyone commits to making it work. Will it work? Torvik asked. Can two such different versions of humanity really coexist? I do not know, Sarah admitted. But we have to try, because the alternative is unthinkable. Over the following months, the covenant took shape. Fleet Osiris moved beyond the outer rim, establishing colonies in regions that the Council had never explored. They took with them over 2 million modern humans who wanted to embrace the warrior path. Young people mostly seeking purpose and strength. Sarah visited one of the new colonies, a world they named Sparta. It was harsh, demanding, exactly what the Osiris refugees wanted. She watched as modern humans underwent the augmentation processes, transforming themselves into something closer to Vorenus and his crew. It was disturbing, watching people deliberately make themselves into weapons, but it was their choice, and she had fought for their right to make that choice. On her last day there, Vorenus gave her a tour of the military academy they were building. Young humans trained in combat, studied strategy, learned the harsh lessons that Fleet Osiris had learned over 3 centuries of war. Do you regret what you have become? Sarah asked him as they watched the students practice. Vorenus was quiet for a long time. Every day, he finally admitted. I remember what it was like to be fully human, before the augmentations, before the war. I remember laughing without purpose, sleeping without nightmares, touching someone without calculating threat levels. He turned to look at her. But I do not regret the choice. We did what was necessary, and now because we did, humanity has options. Young people like these students can choose to become warriors, or they can choose peace. Both choices are valid because we paid the price for freedom. Sarah wanted to argue, to say there must have been another way, but she had seen what the Devourers had done to the regions of Space Fleet Osiris had crossed. She had seen the dead civilizations, the consumed worlds. Perhaps there really had been no other way. There is something else you need to know, Vorenus said quietly. Something I have not told the Council or even most of my crew. He pulled up a star chart showing the region beyond the free territories. In the darkness beyond, strange energy signatures pulsed. The Devourers are not extinct, Vorenus said. We destroyed their forward forces, their active installations. But their core intelligence survived. It retreated deeper into the void, where our sensors could barely detect it. And it is rebuilding. Sarah felt cold. How long do we have? 10,000 years, maybe more, Vorenus replied. Time enough for civilizations to rise and fall. But they are coming, Sarah. Eventually they will reach Council space, and when they do, the galaxy will face a threat unlike anything it has ever known. Why are you telling me this? Sarah asked. Because humanity needs to be ready, Vorenus said. Both branches of humanity. The Council needs to know that peace is temporary, that threats exist beyond their borders, and Fleet Osiris needs a purpose beyond simple independence. We will guard the outer darkness. We will watch for the Devourer's return, and we will buy the galaxy time. He looked back at the training students. These young warriors will be humanity's shield when the darkness comes again. But they will need the Council's wisdom, technology, and resources to succeed. The two branches of humanity must work together when that day arrives. Sarah understood now. The covenant was not just about ending a crisis. It was about preparing for a future threat that most of the galaxy did not even know existed. The Council will not believe you without proof, she said. Then we will provide proof when the time is right, Vorenus replied. For now it is enough that we know, that we prepare, that we ensure humanity in all its forms is strong enough to survive what is coming. Sarah returned to Council space with a heavy heart. She did not tell anyone about the Devourers, not yet. The galaxy needed time to adjust to the current changes before facing another existential threat. But she began preparing. Quietly, carefully, she built relationships between Council researchers and Osiris scientists. She encouraged military exchanges, cultural programs, anything that would keep the two branches of humanity connected. Because Vorenus was right. When the darkness came again, humanity would need both paths. They would need the warriors who could fight, and the diplomats who could unite the galaxy. They would need the weapons of Fleet Osiris and the wisdom of the Council. Years passed. The Covenant held, though tensions remained. Some humans were angry about the division, claiming it weakened the species. Others celebrated it, saying it allowed humanity to explore its full potential. The Council reformed itself, becoming less centralized, more respectful of species autonomy. Other species began demanding similar arrangements, and slowly, the galactic government evolved into something better. Not perfect, but more just. Fleet Osiris established 12 colonies in the free territories, building a society based on strength, discipline, and martial excellence. They were not the monsters that some had feared. They were simply humans who chose a different path, who valued different things, and on the boundary between the two territories monuments were erected. Statues of Admiral Vorenus standing beside Ambassador Chen, representing the two paths of humanity. Plaques explained the Covenant, reminded future generations why the division was necessary. One inscription appeared on every monument, written in every human language. We are one species walking two paths, the warrior and the peacemaker, the shield and the light, both necessary, both valued, both human. When darkness comes, we stand together. When peace reigns, we celebrate our differences. This is humanity. This is our strength. Sarah stood before one such monument years later, now an old woman. Beside her stood young people from both branches of humanity, learning their history, understanding why their ancestors made the choices they did. Did we make the right choice? One young woman asked. She wore the uniform of a Council diplomatic cadet. I do not know, Sarah admitted. History will judge us. But we made the best choice we could with the information we had. We chose freedom over control, diversity over unity. We chose to let humanity be everything it could be, rather than forcing it into a single mold. A young man in Osiris military armor spoke up. My grandfather served with Admiral Vorenus. He told me that the greatest victory Fleet Osiris achieved was not destroying the Devourers. It was returning home and giving humanity a choice. Sarah smiled. Your grandfather was a wise man. She looked up at the stars, thinking of Admiral Vorenus somewhere in the free territories, watching the darkness beyond. Thinking of the threat that would someday emerge from that darkness. Thinking of the future that humanity, all humanity, would have to face together. But for now there was peace. Not perfect peace, but real peace. The kind that required work, compromise, and mutual respect. The kind worth fighting for. The kind that Admiral Vorenus and 2 million souls had spent 1 million years earning. Sarah touched the monument, feeling the cold stone beneath her fingers. Thank you, she whispered to those ancient warriors. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for coming home. Thank you for giving us the freedom to be ourselves. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, Fleet Osiris kept watch. Somewhere in Council space, humanity thrived and grew. And somewhere between those two extremes, the Covenant held. A bridge between past and future, between war and peace, between the two souls of humanity. The galaxy spun on, ignorant of the threat that lurked in the void. But humanity knew. Both branches knew, and when the darkness came again, they would be ready. Together, humanity would face the dawn, carrying both sword and olive branch, prepared for whatever the universe threw at them. This was the lesson of Fleet Osiris. This was the meaning of the Covenant. Not that one path was right and the other wrong, but that both paths together made humanity unstoppable. The stars waited, the darkness gathered, and humanity, finally united in its diversity, finally free to choose its own destiny, stood ready to face whatever came next. The million-year journey was complete, but the story of humanity was just beginning.